When it comes to vintage Yu-Gi-Oh!, the Metal Raiders set is perhaps one of the most original and nostalgic sets from the entire Yu-Gi-Oh! Franchise. The North America version of Metal Raiders was first released in 2002. With over 140 cards, Metal Raiders is one of the largest vintage Yu-Gi-Oh! Sets. It is the second ever set of Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards. And let's face it, if you know anything about Yu-Gi-Oh!, you know that Metal Raiders is packed with some of the most iconic chase cards of the entire Yu-Gi-Oh! Franchise. Whether it is the Gate Guardian, Thousand Dragon, Mirror Force, the Harpy Lady Sisters, Black Skull Dragon, Karibo, Time Wizard, Change of Heart, you name it. There are just so many iconic cards from the Metal Raiders set. But what's funny about this set is there is one card that possesses a very unusual and one-of-a-kind position in the vintage lore of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Series. That card is Garnecia Elephantis, also known as Garnecia Elephantis or Garnecia Elephantis, depending on your preference of pronunciation. This card may not be a chase card. We're not here to allege that Garnecia Elephantis is a more important or a more iconic card than some of those names we mentioned earlier. However, we do believe that the position of this card, the historical significance of this card, and in fact, the level of importance of this card is particularly underrated in light of just how unique and unusual its position truly is. Here are 10 reasons why we believe Garnecia Elephantis is the hidden gem card of the Metal Raiders set. Reason number 1. This card is the definition of vintage. There was only one set ever in the entire TCG franchise that contains Garnecia Elephantis. That set is Metal Raiders, and unlike most other cards that have been reprinted into oblivion or that have reared their head time and time again from set to set, coming back in various rarities or various forms, Garnecia Elephantis never appears again in the entire TCG franchise. If you want this card, the only set that you can get it from is Metal Raiders. Reason number 2. It's one of the most powerful normal monsters in vintage Yu-Gi-Oh! Ask yourself, what were some of the most powerful normal monsters in the franchise from the vintage era? Dark Magician, Blue Eyes White Dragon, Serpent Knight Dragon, Summon Skull, Red Eyes Black Dragon. These are some of the most powerful normal monsters of the very vintage era. All of these normal monsters possessed a very high value of attack and defense points. However, another card that possesses just as many, if not more, cumulative attack and defense points that is also a normal monster is Garnecia Elephantis. Granted, the card is not as famous, it did not see as much airtime in the series. But for those of us that collected the cards, we recall that Garnecia Elephantis did indeed stand out in the vintage era as one of the heaviest hitting normal monsters that you could lay on the field for its very high power of attack and defense. Reason number 3. Garnecia Elephantis is only played one time ever in the entire anime series. And that one time is a flashback. The one time this card was played was such a humiliating defeat for Bandit Keith that the card was probably never used again and shunned for its failure. Reason number 4. Although this card does appear one time in the vintage Yu-Gi-Oh! Series, it only appears in paper format. This is very unusual in the world of vintage Yu-Gi-Oh! Most of the major cards that we saw from Metal Raiders, from Legend of Blue Eyes, from Legacy of Darkness, Spell Ruler, and all these other vintage sets, many of these cards will appear on the field at one time or another, especially those of a very high degree of rarity, like Garnecia Elephantis. In this particular instance, we never actually get to see Garnecia Elephantis on the field. It is entirely up to the collector's imagination to think about what this card would look like in the augmented reality or virtual reality formats that are created by Kaiba Corp and Industrial Illusions. Reason number 5. Nobody uses this card in Battle City. One of the very unusual aspects of this card is that you never see it rear its head during the Battle City tournament. Virtually every major iconic card from the Vintage series makes an appearance during the Battle City tournament. To make things more unusual, Merrick does actually use this card in the Sacred Cards video game for Game Boy Advance. However, you never see this card appear during the Battle City tournament. The rare hunters, Joey, Rex, Mai, Merrick, and many others could have used this card, but they did not. Reason number 6. This is perhaps the most controversial reason we will give in this video. We believe that Garnecia Elephantis was the original mainstay monster, the ace card for Bandit Keith. Now, you might say, the Barrel Dragon was obviously the marquee card, the ace card, the banner monster for Bandit Keith, one of the most important villains of the first season. However, while this may be true by the time Bandit Keith made it to Duelist Kingdom, we believe that prior to this tournament, Garnecia Elephantis was his trusted monster. However, following a humiliating defeat at the hands of Pegasus, Bandit Keith gave up on the heart of the cards and chose to disband his marquee monster. Reason number 7. Garnecia Elephantis has one of the most broken vulnerabilities in the entire game of Vintage Yu-Gi-Oh! That vulnerability is instant defeat at the hands of the Flying Elephant card. Now yes, this card was purely fictitious for almost 15 years. That's right, the Flying Elephant card did not exist in print for the majority of the time that Yu-Gi-Oh! Has existed as a franchise. That said, this unusual episode in the history of Yu-Gi-Oh! Where a card delivered instant victory against Garnecia Elephantis was known for over a decade as one of the most broken and infamous vulnerabilities in the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Series. Reason number 8. Garnecia Elephantis is a very unusual name. What is perhaps very surprising about the name of this creature is the hybridization of the term Garnecia, which draws on both the Spanish and Latin roots around the term guerra or guerra, which is often used in reference to war or combat. However, various sources suggest the name is actually derived from Ganesha, which is the name of a Hindu god that is known for an elephant head. Reason number 9. Garnecia Elephantis was the most powerful beast warrior type monster in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh! For many years. There was not another beast warrior type monster with this level of attack and defense points printed for several years after Garnecia Elephantis was first released. Reason number 10. The show treats this card like a collector's item. In the peculiar case of Garnecia Elephantis, the only time this card is seen after its original appearance with Bandit Keith is within Seto Kaiba's briefcase collection of vintage Duel Monsters cards, which he carries with him to several tournaments and major events. These reasons, among many others, help to build a more complete picture of the history of Garnecia Elephantis and more directly and succinctly articulate why this card is truly a hidden gem card in the very crowded, the very nostalgic, very iconic, and very collectible Metal Raiders set of Duel Monsters. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe for more original content about the vintage Yu-Gi-Oh! Market and some of the most iconic cards from the original series. Thanks again.